I want to invite you to a free live workshop I'm hosting on June 3rd. If your homepage isn't attracting your ideal clients or working the way that you need it to, this workshop is for you. I'll walk you through using AI to audit your own homepage and finally know what to fix. Grab your spot at the link in the show notes. Now, on to the episode. Today's episode is going to be walking through a real client project. And this one's worth sticking around for because what came up in this project is something I see across almost every single industry I work in. I recently worked with a third generation butcher shop. She is a real butcher. It's not a supermarket, it's not a convenience store. This is a business that has been passed down through a family for 3 generations. She's built it on craft, discipline, relationships, and a true sense of responsibility to her community and to the animals that they work with. They have an incredible product quality, deep expertise that most people in industry just do not have. And they have a loyal local customer base that genuinely love them. It's the kind of business that you walk into and you can just feel the difference immediately. But their website, it made them look like every other butcher. And this is where things start to fall apart. We're going to talk about what we did for their website and how you can apply these same principles to your website to make it feel less generic and to attract more of your ideal clients. Welcome to Website Design Made Simple, the podcast for busy small business owners who want a high-performing website that converts and sells their offers, even while they're sleeping. Because you deserve to have a strategic and beautiful website that truly represents your brand and positions you as the expert that you are. I'm your host, Jenny B, web designer and creative director at Jenny B Designs, where we believe that your website is the one thing that makes you sales and builds your brand at the same time. Ready to say goodbye to a website that you're embarrassed to share? And hello to a money-making, personality-packed powerhouse? Let's head into today's episode. Hello and welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here. Today we're going to do another case study. I love doing these, talking about projects that I've done and the information that I've gleaned from them and that you can take and put into practice in your own website. We're talking about a butcher shop that I worked with in Massachusetts. And what's interesting about this one is that if you walked into the physical shop, you would immediately feel the difference that I described in the intro. You would notice the quality of cuts of meat, the ways things were displayed, the knowledge behind the counter. You would feel the care and quality in how every single thing was handled. The way they talked to customers, guided them through the decision. They made their customers feel like they're in good hands. There was a presence, confidence, and trust built into every single interaction in her store. But when you went to the website, none of that came through. You would have no idea that this business was different from any other butcher counter at your grocery store. And that gap, the one between the real world experience and what someone sees online, is where most businesses lose people. Someone hears about you, they get curious, they pull up your website, and they're excited to see, and with a few seconds, they've formed an impression. And if that impression doesn't match the reality of working with you or buying from you, you've already lost them before they even walk through your door or have that consultation call. And this is something I think about a lot because so many businesses I work with are genuinely excellent at what they do. They have skills, the expertise, the reputation, the clients that love them, but their website is working against them without them even realizing it. So let's talk about what was actually wrong with this website, because I think this is where it gets really useful and how you can take some of this information and apply it to your site. Now, the website that they had, it wasn't broken. It wasn't a disaster. It wasn't even really hideous or ugly. It wasn't dramatically outdated in any obvious way. It had pages, it had information, a few decent visuals. And on the surface, it looked like a functioning website. It just felt generic. And here's the thing about generic. Generic is actually more dangerous than a website that's clearly broken or clearly outdated. Because when something's broken, people, they understand that. They tend to give you a pass. Oh yeah, okay, that's broken. They assume that you know it needs work. But when a website looks fine, but it feels like anyone could have it, that's when the trust slowly starts to slip away. A generic website does one thing really well. It makes a great business look average. And for a business like this one, built on decades of experience and a real commitment to doing things right, Looking average is the last thing they needed. There was no moment on that old website where a visitor thought, yeah, this is why they're different. No clear signal that said, this is just not another option. And when people don't have that, I get it, this is different, a clear signal, they don't commit. They browse, they compare, and they click away and leave. And they end up at the place that made them feel more confident, even though the place they may have ended up in actually wasn't better. And I want to say one more thing about a generic website. Generic websites come in many formats. And it can be generic in design, in messaging, in both. I have been seeing a lot of generic AI built websites. It is becoming easier and easier to build a website with AI. And I believe that we are seeing the rise of a generic website coming about forefront. People who are not in the web design industry think that it is so easy to go to AI and have AI create me a website and it looks decent and it has good words and, call it a day. But if you look around, you'll notice that websites that are built with AI are starting to look more and more like each other. I liken this to back in the early 2000s, 2010s. WordPress was built with a lot of templates, and you would go to this place called ThemeForest and get all your templates. And they all looked pretty similar. They may have different colors, different fonts, and things like that, but they all looked the same. It was generic. And I truly believe that the way to stand out in today's busy world is to have a website that truly reflects who you are, what you do, and it makes that emotional connection. And this cannot be done with something that is generic. So keep that in mind if you do end up using AI tools or as you're browsing on the internet and you come across these websites, see how they make you feel, because generic isn't going to really bring about your differentiator. Now, I want to pause here because I have something really important to say and I want you to understand it. Your website doesn't need to impress people. It needs to help them understand you, and it needs to do it quickly. I think a lot of business owners feel like when they think about their website, they think about it in terms of looking good or looking pretty. They want it to look professional, which is important. They want it to look polished. But looking good isn't the same as being clear. Clearness and understanding leads to trust, and trust is where people take the action. When someone lands on your website within the first few seconds, they get it. They understand who you are, what you do, and who it's for. Something shifts. They stop that browsing mode and they start actually considering you. But when a website is beautiful but confusing or complete but unclear, people will leave, not because they weren't interested, but because they couldn't figure out fast enough if you were the right fit. We all have short attention spans. You need to do this quickly. That matters most of all. Now, when I looked at this project, the gaps that she had came down to three things. And I want to walk through each one because I see versions of all three all over websites. The first one was the positioning. This business had powerful things that set them apart from any other butcher shop. Third generation expertise, woman owned, that's amazing. Whole animal butchery, ethical sourcing, deep relationships with their suppliers that most places do not have. And these are not small things. These are the kind of differentiators that the right customers care deeply about. But none of that was being communicated clearly. It was not being said on their old website. And it was being said, it was buried or assumed, and it was hard for those potential clients to find. So instead of standing out, their old website, it blended in. And people who would have chosen them specifically because of those things never even knew to look. The second gap that she had was trust building. And trust wasn't being built intentional on the website. There were no clear signs guiding visitors through the why. Nothing that said, here is how we source meat, here is how we work together, here is why that matters and why it's different from what you'd find elsewhere. Visitors were expected to somehow piece that together on their own, and people aren't going to do that. It's just too much for our brains. We can't do it. We don't have the time. We don't have the patience. So if you make us work to understand what you're saying on your website, most likely we'll choose someone else. Think about your trust being built. And then the third gap that she had was a clear path forward. The website didn't tell people what to do next. There was no guided journey. It didn't help someone move from curious to confident. I built something free for you and I want to tell you about it. It's a bot and it's called the Homepage Clarity Check. What happens is you drop your website URL into the bot. It reviews your homepage the way a website strategist would, like me, and it tells you what a new visitor actually sees, what's working, and what to fix first. You can find it at jennybdesigns.com or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. It's presented content and hope for the best. Come visit us in the store, and hope isn't a strategy for your website. Now, what do? Here is the thinking and the execution. The first thing that we did not do was start designing. I took a step back and I asked a question. What does someone need to feel and understand within the first 3 seconds of landing on the site? And the question is so simple, but it changes everything. It forces you to think about your website from the outside in. Not what you want to say, but from the point of what does someone need to receive? And these things are very different. And once we got the answer to that question, everything followed. The first thing was to bring the positioning forward right away, not buried in that about page, not mentioned halfway down the services page, but right at the top, the first thing what someone sees. It became immediately clear when I had my first call that this was not a typical butcher. It is a heritage, a responsibility, precision. This business has been doing this for more than 3 generations, and they take it seriously in a way that most people in the industry just do not. And I don't want a visitor having to figure that out on their own. I don't want them to have to dig for it. I want them to know it and feel it immediately. And feeling it is what keeps them on the site long enough to read more. And that is something I want you to hear. Your differentiators are not obvious to people who don't know you already. You have to say them loud and proud and clearly and early. And you have to say them in a way that lands, not just in a way that lists. I'll give you the example that we used for this client. When you land on her website, it says, Old World Butchery, handled with respect from farm to counter. Premium hand-selected meats from a 3rd-generation butcher who believes the quality is the result of thousands of correct decisions, not shortcuts. It is abundantly clear, Old World Butchery, farm to counter. Premium hand-selected meat, 3rd-quality butcher. And she believes in correct decisions, not shortcuts. And the whole website, the messaging around that is going to reflect it. Now, we turned her knowledge into authority, and this is one of your website's main jobs. She had an incredible amount of knowledge on how to cook everything, different cuts, internal temperatures, storage, anything that you can think of to ask a butcher. She knew the right answers. Why sourcing matters, how to evaluate it. And this was useful knowledge that her customers would have loved to have access to. But a lot of it was scattered. Some of it was in her head. Some of it came up in conversations with clients. Some of it she did mention on her website, here and there on her website. But it wasn't in an organized way that someone could easily find it. So we created the Butcher's Guide. It is a resource that lives on her website, and it became a destination. Not just information, but a place, something with a name, a purpose, and a reason to come back to. And that matters because when you take what you know and organize it into something useful and accessible, you stop being just a seller and start becoming an expert. You become the go-to place that people want to learn from, not just a place that they go to buy. And this shift in positioning is so powerful. Think about your own business. What do you know that your clients would find genuinely valuable? Where is that knowledge right now? Is it organized somewhere on your website? Is it living in your head, coming out in conversations? Because there's probably a version of what we did for this site waiting to come to life in your business too. Where could you put that? Then we design the website like a salesperson. Framing. You want your website to be your best salesperson, right? And you don't want to just present information and hope that the person visiting your website figures out what to do. You need to guide them, anticipate their questions, help them understand in the right order at the right time, making that path forward feel clear and easy. This is what your website should be doing. Now, a lot of websites just display information and leave visitors to figure it out on their own, So that means some people will find out what they need and some people don't. And the ones that don't, they leave. For this project, we structured the whole site to guide decisions. And some paths are obvious. If we want them to visit the shop, here's exactly what to expect. If you want to learn more before you come in, here's a resource for that. If you want to place an order, we have that option too. If you have a question, you can reach out. Every option is clear, and the next step is obvious. Clarity is what keeps people moving forward. Then we matched the tone of the website to the reality. And this one is subtle and important, and it's something that makes your website not generic. We didn't make the website louder. We didn't add hype. We didn't try to make it sound more exciting than it is, because that's not truthful. It wouldn't have matched the experience of actually being there. What we did was we made the website calmer, clearer, more intentional, more deliberate, more elevated, because that is how this business actually operates. There's a steadiness to it, a quiet confidence that comes from 3 generations of doing this really well. And the website needs to reflect that. I believe that the tone of your website matches the reality of working with you. People trust it. And when those 2 things are misaligned, someone just can't put their finger on exactly what feels off, but they have that subtle sense of misalignment. Think about a business where you've come across and the website feels a little bit too sleazy, a little bit too salesy, like too much. And when you got on a call with them or you met them in person, they were calm and lovely. The gap right there is jarring. It makes you second guess things and you wonder which version is the real one. Your website should feel like the beginning of the experience of working with you, not just a highlight reel. My website, if you go to it, it has a really calm, quiet energy about it. I don't have any bright, bold colors. It's mostly muted, simple tones, black, whites, little neutrals here and there. The pictures are very simple. The words are very conversational. And when you meet me and we work together, that's how I run my business too. But imagine if I had this boisterous personality and I was using, I was swearing all the time and I was loud and I had a different personality. And we met in person and then you went to my website. There's a disconnect there. Your website needs to match the tone to reality. Now, a lot of you listening, not a butcher shop. What does this have to do with me? Everything. The pattern between how good a business actually is and how it comes across online, it shows up across all industries. And if your business is built on trust, on expertise, on the quality of your work, and your website looks like everyone else's, you are going to create confusion. You're making people work harder than they should in order to choose you. Businesses that do this well have a website that communicates clearly who they are, why they matter, what to do next. They don't need fancier websites. They need clearer ones. So how can we make this practical for you? The first thing is, if your website looks like your competitors, different design isn't going to be enough. You need different positioning. You need to be saying clearly and early, as in your hero section, what makes you different. What makes you worth choosing specifically, not generally. This is a message problem before it's a design problem. There are, I don't know how many website designers out and about in the world. There are a lot of us. So on my website, before you go any further, my hero says a website that feels like you and works hard for your business. Thoughtfully designed websites for small businesses that value clarity and great communication. A process that feels good from first hello to launch. What makes me different? My websites are thoughtfully designed. I have a process that feels good. And a website is going to feel like you and work hard for your business. That's what differentiates me from every other business designer, website business designer. What is your differentiating factor? And a good way to figure this out is to use a little bit of AI. Grab some reviews or interview some of your previous clients, and then ask AI to go through it and ask, what are people saying? What are the common themes that you're finding? And really try to identify what makes you different and bring that out in your messaging. The second thing is that people don't read websites. They scan them. They're looking for signals and they're looking for them fast. And if your messaging isn't clear within the first few seconds, it gets ignored. So give people that clarity quickly. The third is that education builds trust faster than persuasion. When you teach something that's genuinely useful or share real knowledge or real expertise, people will trust you. You're building that authority. Think about the butcher's guide for this one. It's a perfect example. Every single business has a version of that waiting to be built. Think about what you can add to your website. The fourth is guidance. Every single page of your website should answer one question for the visitor. What should I do next? And if a page doesn't have an answer to that question, it's a dead end, and people leave on dead ends. And then finally, the tone, making sure that it matches the tone that you have in real life. You don't need to be louder. You need to be clearer, more you. So back to this butcher shop. When we finished this project, something shifted. When someone lands on their website now, they don't just see products. They understand the standards that this business holds itself to. They get that philosophy behind it. They understand why this place is different. And they feel confident to walk through the door and spend their money there. And that is what a good website does. It doesn't just look good or list your services or tell people you exist. It builds enough understanding and trust that the right people feel ready to take the next step. And the website didn't need to be loud to do it. It just needed to be clear and intentional and match the reality of the business representing it. So if you're sitting with your own website right now and something about this episode is resonating, start with one question. What does someone need to understand about my business within the first 10 seconds? And if you don't know what it should be, or you're curious about how you can make your website feel a little bit more like you, then I invite you to book a coaching call. There's a link in the show notes, and together we can review your website, and I'll share with you some ways that you can update your current website right now to attract more ideal clients and make more money with your website. So I thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. And that wraps up another episode of Website Design Made Simple. I hope you found the insights shared in this episode valuable and takes you one step closer to creating a website that attracts more of your ideal clients and builds your brand. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. Your review will help us reach more small business owners like you who are ready to make more money with their website. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.